For sure. All right, it is 12 noon and we are going to start on time. Welcome to your EOX orientation. What we're going to have here today is just kind of a 5-minute overview, and then we will answer any questions you guys have, and we'll turn it over to Allison to talk about training at that time. All right,
All
so
right.
let me mute everyone else here. And mute. Okay. All right, so EOX, obviously inspired by TEDx, we are bringing back something that we did in EO Atlanta about 10 years ago, and it was a lot smaller then. We only had one event for the whole year, and now we're doing an awesome 10 events, and we'll talk about that more. But if you guys weren't at the calendar reveal the other day, awesome event, but we kind of gave some background on it, so we'll go into more depth and more detail here today. So first, here's the vision for EOX. It is a peer-to-peer learning package. It's peer-to-peer learning packaged in an impactful, educational, and entertaining way. So we learned from watching the WhatsApp group and all the conversations between members. We have a lot of expertise, and we each have stories to share with each other, and we can learn from each other. And that's been kind of an untapped resource in the chapter until now. So as your learning chairs, me, Jason, Brian, we are bringing back EOX 10 times bigger than it was before. Now, entrepreneurs, we love rules, right? Not at all. We hate rules. So there are only 3 rules to EOX. And the first one is EO's core value of trust and respect. So what does that mean? Well, we're not going to boo anybody, of course. We're here to support and encourage each other. If speakers have kind of different views or conflicting angles on a topic, we're not going to argue on stage or anything like that. We respect everyone's views. This is still EO. We're amongst our peers. We're going to show up to the trainings. We're going to show up to the meetings on time, show up to the events on time, and just give everyone ultimate respect. Everyone be everyone else's hype man or hype woman.
Are you sure you want to remove booing because you have not heard what I have to say yet?
We can only boo David Faffoldi. That's
There you go.
only booing allowed. Rule number 2, this is also an EO rule, 0 solicitation. So as you go through your EOX talk, your main takeaway cannot be hire my company or anything like that or anything of that sort. We are here to teach and to give actionable learning to each other. That's what this is all about. And rule number 3 is your maximum time is 15 minutes, 14 minutes, 59 seconds to be exact. If you go over that, then you're over time. Now, it can be shorter. You can do a 5-minute talk. You can do an 8-minute talk. You can do a 10-minute talk, but you cannot do a 15-minute and 1-second talk. That goes back to trust and respect. We want to respect all of the speaker's time, and Alison's going to help you condense your message to make it impactful within the time frame. Probably the shorter and sweeter, the better. So here's the event format. It's typically going to be a lunch and learn type format. I think this first one, we're actually going to start earlier and do it like a breakfast going into lunch for the July event. But we're going to play around with the times a little bit, but typically it's going to be around a meal, like in your day around lunchtime, so you can design it and not have too much time away from work or family or whatever you're doing. It's going to be high energy and inspirational. You guys heard me playing the music when you all came on this call. That is Lose Yourself by Eminem. It's one of the songs that gets me pumped up. I want you guys to think about what song gets you pumped up, because we're going to give each of you a rock star 1-minute intro, and you're going to come out to your music. Jason might have Smoke and Lasers. That's to be determined, but I think there was talk about that. But we're taking this to a whole nother level when it comes to EO learning events. Think of each of these like a mini conference, if you will, but super high energy and impact. And then actionable insights. This is, we want people to be taking notes. We want people to leave writing in their passports or their notebooks or on their tablets, but we want everyone to leave from this with a page full of notes. There will be about 3 to 5 speakers for each event. we're trying to group people into related topics so that each EOX event can have kind of an overarching theme or category. But of course, your talk can stand on its own, but that makes sense for them to all be kind of grouped together as far as a connected theme. And then we're going to end it by having a Q&A panel with all the speakers coming back up to sit down, and the audience can ask questions. So you don't have to try to pack it all into your speech, like all the knowledge that you've gained over your decades of experience being an entrepreneur or whatever. You can save some of it for the Q&A panel, so do keep that in mind. In fact, this was originally, we were just going to do panels because we had that that panel about selling your business that went really well a year or two ago. So we just decided to kind of expand on that, because what if each speaker gave more background and training before we did the panel? So that's kind of a blend of that and the EOX series from back in the day. Upcoming EOX dates. We have July 16th is confirmed. That will be our growth by acquisition theme. And I think, who are our speakers for that? We have, and Jason, Brian, feel free to chime in. I think we have John Ostenston, and is it Mitesh?
Yeah, Mitesh, David Hearn, and Randall Tober.
All right, awesome. So Alison will be getting with them to do like core, like one-on-one training with them, with that small group after today. And then we have August 27th will be the AI event. I think we might have 5 speakers for that event. Now, the rest of the dates are not yet confirmed because we did reopen the application, and we gave people until June 15th to meet the deadline and get in their applications. We had a lot of people come up to us after the at the learning event, excuse me, at the calendar reveal event last week. So we decided to open it back up. But once we get all speakers in the application pool, then we can easily sort out things, and then we can get with each group of speakers and lock down dates that don't have a conflict with other EO events and other things that are going on in the world. But overall, these are some of the topics that, you know, we've kind of landed on as overarching themes for each event. So if we can, and I think we've been able to group everyone into one of these categories. We haven't found any outliers right now. So, so think about where your topic might fall. And some people have applied for 2 different talks. You can actually do that if you have like completely different talks that fit in different categories. You just need to do the training and do the exercises for each one of them. The framework. Now, I do want to start out by saying there are many frameworks for doing a speech. This is one of them. And this is kind of a skeleton. Now, you don't have to stick with this, but I think it's a great framework, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But start with a story, and then your message, then build credibility, and then give your teaching point 1, teaching point 2, teaching point 3. And this could be, if you want to do like easy, medium, hard, or beginner, intermediate, advanced, however you want to frame it based on your message. And then your conclusion. And Alison will go into more detail on this, but this is the proposed framework. Now, we have people coming in here at different speaking levels. So some of you have been, you know, speaking on stages for years. Like if you're Brad Stevens and you've done 200 speeches and you know that they land and they work because you've seen the results from it, you may or may not want to stick with this particular framework. You may want to stick with your framework. Or you might be open-minded and say, hey, well, I'll try to, you know, craft my message and fit it into this framework just to kind of stretch my mental muscles and try something new and see what I can learn from it. That's fine. That's up to you. But remember the rule, you need to stick within the time frame. That is the main thing. And we encourage you to try this framework because we think it will deliver an impactful and educational message.
Yep, and I'll just, on that last slide, I'll just add, when we thought about teaching points, we thought about like actionable teaching points. So, you know, whatever your story is, using growth by acquisition as an example, the teaching points might be, you know, if you were going to grow by acquisition, you might think about, you know, looking for businesses that aren't for sale. You might look, you know, pay attention to profits instead of EBITDA, or, you know, just different things that the person can write in their passport or whatever notebook they're using. So it's kind of like actionable things they could take away with, say if there's 3 speakers on the panel, that they walk away with like 9 things. They don't have to be big things either. They could be small things, but like 9 things throughout the event, in addition to the Q&A, that they could walk away and possibly implement in their business.
Yeah, and I might add on to that. I think another good framework to consider is easy, medium, and hard. There's going to be all levels of sophistication in this audience. I think it's compelling in the spirit of Power Up, like a video game, to choose your level. So people who are very advanced have an opportunity to do a deep dive. People who are just interested might be something that they read or get inspired by. So again, as Ethan said, everybody can take this, but what we really want to convey, we think storytelling is really important, and those actionable takeaways are really important. So you can decide how that works. And of course, that's why we brought on Alison, because she can help you frame this up in a way that's compelling.
Yeah, and just to address some of the questions before we hand it over to Alison, they're in the chat, but for anyone who's driving or not looking at the chat, does the 15 minutes exclude Q&A time? And the answer is yes. You get up to 15 minutes for your talk, and then we'll have additional Q&A panel at the end where all the speakers sit up there and answer Q&A. So that does not take away from your time. All right. So any other questions before we hand it over to Alison, who's going to talk about the training? Will the sessions be recorded? Yes, that is the plan for all of the, yes. John, that is the plan for all of the EOX sessions to be recorded. We plan to get like a professional videographer in there so that you can use it for other purposes. We did that last time, and I think it went well. Will there be a very visible clock countdown item?
Like a timer.
Yeah. Oh, time. Oh, while you're speaking. Yeah, we'll make sure we have a clock for you. But you're also going to be dialing in your speech with Alison, so that shouldn't be an issue anyway. But we will make sure we have something to help you keep track of time. And someone asked me about solicitation, like can we just say, well, that's what my company does. That would probably be fine. It would probably come out in your intro anyway. So think about that, because when we introduce you, that's someone else talking about you. So that's your time to shine and say what it is you do and why you have the credibility. So you're going to weave that into your story, and you shouldn't have to say like, well, that's what my company does, or reach out to me. It should come through the message naturally. And when you do a great job of teaching people, then people will naturally just want to reach out to you anyway, because they see and they value your expertise. Will there be displays? Is this Talkie Talk or Talk Plus? Yes. Yes, we encourage slides. There will be slides. This is different from TED. It's inspired by TED, and that's kind of the catchy thing that we're using, but it's not a TED Talk where you're just getting up there. TED has a very different format, which Alison knows all too well. When I did my TED Talk, I had to memorize the whole thing. There were no slides. It was very polished and scripted. With this, we're teaching, so have your slides there. You don't need to memorize it. You'll have your slides to lean on, but you will also have practiced it and internalized it so that you can give a very smooth presentation. But yes, we encourage amazingly interesting slides, David. Can we use the recordings outside of the EO framework? That is completely up to you. Of course, I wouldn't share anyone else's recording without their permission, but your own recording, you can do what you want with it. All right, any other questions or any other comments from the learning team before we hand it over to Alison? All right. Well, Alison, I am going to switch it over to you so that you can power up our EOX speakers.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. As I said when we were at the meeting, I am a professional speaker coach, and I have worked with over 150 TEDx speakers, and I work with people who do speaking all around the world, any kind of speech, a lot of keynotes, a lot of presentations. So this is my full-time work. I love it. And I'm super excited to have this opportunity with all of you. So I really kind of want to start off of the framework and really why I love the TED platform so much. And it's kind of where all talks kind of are moving. And that is, of course, these opening, compelling stories at the beginning, which is always the way to bring people in, make it relatable. And then I'm going to encourage in terms of memorizing that at the very least, you memorize that opening story. So you can walk into this talk with a lot of confidence and look at your audience right away and not be so glued to your slide or if you have to have your piece of paper. So that's the piece I'm going to really challenge you to memorize. And then the next piece of a TED talk is that message, like really having a clear message. Like, what are you talking about? What are people going to take away from your talk? Making that very clean and clear. So if somebody says, what is your talk about? You can tell them in just one easy sentence. And then everything moving forward on your talk points to your message. So if it has nothing to do with your message, it doesn't belong. Because in this meeting, they're going to listen to 4 talks, right? Yours has to be, for people to remember, it's got to be something very clean and clear. So I'm going to really work with you to make sure that your message is really clear. And then there's the credibility. And on the TEDx stage, you don't actually say your business or any of that, but you still can give some credibility and you can talk about your business. And this isn't the TEDx stage, but the idea of why you? Why are we listening to you? I mean, yes, your peers, they all know who you are, but as I'm hearing, some of you may want to use this talk as a standalone, and that credibility piece is going to be really important to put in there. Like, why me? And so you'll talk a little bit about that. And then of course, all of these teaching points that, and I'm going to show you a worksheet that you're all going to get that's going to kind of help you break all this down. So the 2 things that make a great talk are content, and that it means taking the time to really choose your words because you only have so much time. And I would say a very small percentage of people have the ability to just get up and speak and just, it's amazing. And you're like, wow. And they give you unbelievable content and they don't even practice. Maybe they have an outline and they just can spew it out. But most of us cannot. Most of us need to be organized, need to know what we want to say. So being very clear on your content is going to be very important. And then of course your delivery. So I want to have enough time for you all to have your content down so that you can also have some space to play with your delivery. And in that delivery, it's everything from having a pause, allowing yourself to have those pauses, which are really powerful, to bringing in some energy so you can like really get excited, as well as pulling back and being a little kind of serious. So there's just a lot you can do with your delivery that makes it powerful. And it depends on who you are. I don't know you all yet, but somebody might have some humor and might want to put humor in. Somebody might have a dazzling personality and want to bring it. Somebody might just be really serious. And with them, we just have to kind of, what can we do to make it interesting? Because when you have an audience, you got to keep them engaged. So you keep them engaged either by asking them a question every minute. I don't know. We can pick our times. Or changing the way in which you're speaking so that they can hear you in a different way. Or having a dazzling, amazing slide. So that really helps. So in terms of slide, I'm going to encourage you all not to put all your words on those slides, because I don't know who invented that. I don't know whose idea it was to make slides so busy and so intense that a person talks. I don't know how you can read the slide and hear the person. I mean, in pharmaceuticals, they have to, but every place else you do not always have to put that information. So I'm going to encourage your slides to support what you're saying, to be pictures of what's going on, to be very little words, only when they're important, and that we really spend the time listening to you and hearing you do the expertise. So yeah, so busy, crazy slides out, exciting, as somebody said, amazing, interesting slides in. And in the TED framework, it's like a slide per minute. So I know you might need a couple more because it might help you. It helps you remember what you're going to say. So I understand that. And if you're not going to memorize it, which you probably won't, then you probably need those slides just to help you go. But I really also want to encourage you to make sure you're not dependent on your slides and you're out there delivering. Should be images or simple graphs only. If they're reading words on the slide, there aren't. Correct. That's 100%. Only if you want read, only if your slide has words, you need to read those words. You can't depend on your audience to hear you and then read the words at the same time. Okay. So also in delivery, there's being conversational, authentic, telling your stories. So I use a really cool tool, and I'm going to show you now. Ethan, am I able to share? Let's see. Maybe I'm in control here.
You should be able to.
Okay. So I'm going to share this tool. It's called Yoodli AI. It is a AI speaker coaching platform. And you get 5 free Yoodlis. So we should be able with each of you to get it done in 5. If you need more, you can pay for the year. If you don't want to do that, I have a way we can do a $20 for a month through me, but you can't do it on your own. You have to pay for the whole year. But it might be worth it. It's pretty cool. So I'm just going to show you. So you're going to get on Yoodli and you're going to record. So it's over here. You're going to say presentation and you're going to record your presentation. And once it's recorded, and this is somebody I'm working with, she's doing a TEDx San Diego talk, which is very cool, where AI is now going to be our life coach. And actually, she did convince me, I'll be honest. At first I was like, how is that possible? And then I'm like, okay, I get it. So what Yoodli does is you get your time, which is really important. So let's talk just a second about time. Ethan said you get 15 minutes. Some of you are going to use it well, and some of you don't need it. So ideal talks are between, like this short talks are between 8 and 12 minutes. Short talks are fantastic. If you just want to, and it'll also be a variety for the listeners at these events. If everybody's 15, 15, 15, that could get hard to listen to. So don't be afraid to go less. Although the shorter talks are a little harder because you really, really, really have to choose your words, but they're totally possible. So what this Yoodli does is you get on, you record, then it's going to do this cool stuff. It's going to give you some coaching, which sometimes it's really good. I'll be honest. They ask some really good questions, but the analytics are what I really like. So the analytics will measure your filler words, your weak words, all these so's, sentence starters. She started with I a lot. Like if it does me, I'm always starting with so. So it's, see, I just did it. So, and I want to do it so bad. See, so. And then I did, so every time I talk about filler words, all I do is do filler words. So this is an amazing tool, and we'll be using this because what you're going to get out of me is you're going to get a group session and 2 individual sessions. We're going to try. Yes, 2 individual sessions. And we have a lot of work to do for those of you who really want to get this to your best. And that's going to mean you're going to have to do these Yoodlis. These Yoodlis are going to show me your time. They're going to give me a chance to listen to it and give some feedback. And they're going to give you a chance to listen to it. Now, I will tell you, if you listen to yourself on the Yoodli and you say to yourself, I hate my voice, you are not alone. Most people do not like the way they sound. So just so you know, it's not you. Somebody else did a talk I worked with on how everybody hates their voice. Well, there you go. Okay. I'm not seeing questions because I have this up, so I don't know if we have questions at this point. So I'll keep going and then we'll come back to questions. So I'm going to encourage that after you do your first draft, you get it into the Yoodli. So I know John sent me his first draft. Yay, John. And it looked amazing. And so now we need to figure out our timing so we know what to do with it. So everybody's going to get this brainstorming step-by-step worksheet for writing a draft for your EOX talk. Shouldn't say for your talk. Okay. Delete. Okay. This will help you to put this talk together. And the first part is just brainstorming. So you always want to know what you want your audience to take away from the talk. That's the bottom line. The bottom line is you can say all the things you want, but what do you want your audience to take away? And that is inserted into your message. The other way you can kind of understand this is your current audience state. Where is your audience now? And where do you want to take them? What's the journey you want to take them on? Is it they know nothing to maybe they want to get started doing this, or maybe they have kind of a basic knowledge and you just want to give them, you just want to educate them. So kind of these are thoughts to think as you write your talk. Then what is the message of your talk? What is it that you're trying to get across? And that sometimes takes a while. That's usually the hardest part of any talk, is figuring out your message. And in your cases, because you're going to all be speaking to kind of the same subjects for each talk, you're going to want to have a unique message. And that's where, how is yours unique? How is, if you're talking about growth and acquisition, what is your unique angle on that? If you have 5 other speakers that are going to talk on that. And I imagine that you will, but we also have to kind of figure out what everybody's messages are on that. And a really great way to help, like with your messaging, or is to create your titles. So if you take your message and you put it into ChatGPT and ask for like 10 titles based on that message, you're going to get some really good words, like really good, clean ideas, which can help to be the title of your talk, which I'm sure you could probably use when during the event. So let's just talk a little bit about is there any questions or anything I need to answer at this point, Ethan? Are we good?
No, there are no questions. You're good to go.
Okay. So an opening story, right? It's just going to bring the audience into, the story can be about you. It can be a story about a client, preferably about you, maybe your work with a client. And sometimes it can be a story about like a famous person that we know, but preferably a story about you and your experience. And I'm looking, so an overarching story is that you have a story, like say you were in growths and acquisitions and I'm John, a little bit of his talk, I'm just pulling a thought out of it, but say you started a franchise and you learned how to franchise from start to end. You could build your story into your whole talk. You can start with your opening story. I started a franchise. I was very excited about it. Point 1, this isn't easy. And then you continue your story. It wasn't easy for me because this is what happened. Point 2, you got to keep your feet on the ground. And then your story and your story. So you could do a whole talk if indeed you have a really good story that showcases your message throughout. Or when you get to your points, you can use individual different stories. So building credibility, I think I spoke a little bit about this, is, why you? Why are you an expert? Why should we listen to you? Why do we care? Now, it might not be because you have an MBA and a PhD. It just may be because you have experience, right? Because this happened to you. You might not even have a business around it. I don't know your idea. You just might have a really real core experience that shifted you and really made you understand whatever this idea is. So brainstorming all your stories. What are your personal stories? What are your client stories? Maybe stories of well-known people that have to do with this. And then you define your action items, or as I said, these 3 points, because and everything you speak about goes to these points. So what's that core message, which you put at the top, and list all of the possible action items that you could talk about. And then you're going to choose 3 of them. And then for each point, you're going to have a message to that point. And then you're going to have a story, fact, insight, case study, trend, practical tip to go with it. So everything that you say, we're going to back it up. And again, John turned his in and he did an excellent job of that. He gave his points, and at the end, he told some really good stories. Because I know you all know this, but right, the stories are what lands, telling us what really happened to somebody. The more you can reveal, the more vulnerability, the more people are going to get it. But again, I know you also have some really good points, and John's, I also learned a lot. I mean, he gave some really good messages based on his experiences.
Alison, I have a question about storytelling. Sometimes stories are cautionary tales. They're not necessarily like all positive. What's your viewpoint on that? I mean, obviously it's ideal if it goes from a negative to a positive, but in some topics, it's just, hey, it's a warning, So in terms of maintaining inspiration, but when people have their story and it's more of a cautionary tale, how do you have any recommendations on how to frame that up and still be inspirational?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately you're going to solve the problem of the story. So if your opening of any story is one of a cautionary tale, I think it absolutely works. And, the TED platform is not a motivational platform. They clearly state that. We don't want motivational speakers. What they have is speakers who speak on a topic and they happen to motivate. So it's the same thing with this. We're not looking for you all to be inspiring. Don't try to be inspiring. Just like in comedy, sometimes they say, don't try to be funny. Just say what you want to say from your heart, from your passions, from what you know, and you will be inspiring. That's what we're looking for. So a cautionary tale leads to inspiration. So I also have a place for you guys to put down quotes. Quotes are great if they're good. ChatGPT can make up some quotes if you want them made up. Research is always good, but not too much. Nobody wants too much. But if you find a research point that's going to but we don't want a lot of them because it's hard to follow. And when it does come to research, it is nice to, if you want to put that slide up, you want to say it a little slower always because it's hard. You have to remember we're processing as you're going. So that's why we encourage pausing. That's why we don't want you to have to go too long. That's why you have to tell stories. That's why research has to go slow because we want to take it in. And then there's audience participation. So it is nice to engage your audience. You don't have to, but you can try one of these things. You can ask a question. You can take a poll. Slido is really cool. I'm kind of just discovering it. I think there's a lot you can do with that. You can do a turn and talk to your neighbor moment. You can do a show of hands. You can do a one-word response. So a lot of times in our speaking, we get stuck on what we're saying and we forget to talk to the audience. What do you think, right? Like really, we're having a conversation. Unfortunately, we're the only one talking, but we have to constantly be thinking about what is our audience thinking? Do they, You know, do they need me? Do they need to take a break? Do they need a clarification point? Like, what do they need? How do I make my talk speaking to you? And so a lot of times we use you language, and I think people forget to say you a lot in their talk. If you're funny, if you want to be humorous, you can do it through a joke, a slide. You can say something funny about yourself. And a lot of times humor comes like after, like you get your talk down and you're like, okay, I really want to be funny. And then you kind of have a sense of where that funny is, and then you build it in there. And then of course your closing. I am not a fan of a short talk of you summarizing what you just said minutes ago. I feel like people are very intelligent. They do not need a major summary. I would rather have a really, you know, knock them out of the park ending. And those endings can be tie back to your opening story. So your opening story could not be resolved. So like Jason said, it could be a cautionary tale that after you tell all the pieces resolves in the end, and you tell the resolve of that story. A lot of times imagine, or what if, right? What, especially with this AI person I was working with, like, you know, what if we all could have a pocket empathetic coach in our pocket that could be there whenever we wanted to help us through hard times? You know, how would the world be different? So that's always a nice ending. You know, you can end with a quote. And I don't know the call to action. I think we're not doing a major call to action because this is just kind of a talk and an expert talk. So I wouldn't recommend that. And then I just have the write your draft. So you'll go ahead and write your draft kind of based on all of this. So step one will be for you guys to go through the worksheet, write the draft. Then we're going to have a group call, and we're going to just have everything. When you work with me, we're working. So we'll have a group call. We'll work on your talks because it'll just be 3 to 5 of you. And then you'll have individual calls where we'll continue to work on your talk. You'll have a Google Shared Doc where I can kind of get in the background of it. And hopefully we're going to just tighten these babies up, and then you're going to have, so I think it's going to be a 6 to 7 week run between each one where you'll have time to get started from the time you start. Let's say 6 weeks. You know, you want to have your talk written, completed in 4 weeks, and you want 2 weeks to practice your delivery. So you can really show up, you know, with your full self and know what you're talking about. I'm going to give you all a timeline. If you follow the timeline and you do all the things, you'll get yourself where you need to go. Again, if you're like a really confident speaker and you're like, listen, I got this, that's fine. I'm not here to, I mean, I can help you raise your game if you need to, but I'm here to just help you get to that moment where you feel really good about your talk and, you know, do the best that you can. I'm not going to push you to do anything more than the next person. I'm going to help you be you and show up the best way you can at whatever level you're at. So that, I think, let me look at my notes.
And while you're checking that, Alison, I do want to chime in on the call to action piece. Your call to action doesn't have, in this context, it wouldn't be a, you know, book a call with our company, obviously, because that would be solicitation. But your call to action can be, go out and do this now. You know, this is your next step in life. You can take this type of action from the teachable things that you shared during the presentation.
Okay, so yeah, so that's, I'm good on my end. If anybody has any questions, we will get you this worksheet. I have been sending it to people as a, I'm going to send it to you, and then I'm going to want you to send your draft to me as a Google Shared Doc, but not until I ask, not until your group comes up. So don't send me things ahead of time, because I got to get each group out the door.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you, Alison. And use the WhatsApp groups, everyone. We have the main WhatsApp group that all the speakers are in, but then we will also be creating subgroups for once you're put into a category that's like the overarching theme for your EOX category. You'll be put into a group with just your speakers, and me and Jason and Brian and Allison to help with coordinating that event. And that's when she'll give you like your direct homework and follow up with your scheduling and all of that stuff. So feel free to be very vocal, ask questions. We're here to support each other. So use WhatsApp, use email, whatever means necessary. I will send out this recording to everyone who could not make the call. And I will also attach Allison's worksheet. And is there anything else before we wrap this up?
I feel good. If anyone has any questions.
Not a question, but for those of you who have never done anything like this before, and it sounds a little intimidating, it's very, very, very good for you. So that's a good feeling to have. I remember right before I went on, the AV person who had recorded a lot of them just gave me the advice and summarizing. They're like, the best ones are the ones that really come across as the most authentic, like how you speak and what you say. So whereas I do believe practice makes perfect, I also truly believe like make sure you're talking as if you are talking to an EO member who's 3 feet in front of your face, because that's where the authenticity comes out. And that's a little hard to do when there might be 50 people looking at you, or 25, or even 10. But trust me, like if you can keep that and really be true to yourself and how you talk and how you speak and how you convey passion, that's what's going to make this an amazing experience, not just for your audience, but for you. So, and if anybody wants to talk it through or work through, of course, Allison's our resident expert, but always happy to have a sidebar too, because I just can only summarize the value it's been to me. And then I think everybody who's participated in anything like this before.
Yeah, and I want to say that I love that you're putting that out, Jason, because it really isn't, not just about me. It's nice to have feedback from other people too, but not too many. Don't start telling everybody your talk or you're going to go crazy, because they're going to tell you all kinds of things. But Jason, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Don't tell people what you're thinking about naming your baby, and they'll give you feedback.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love it, guys. And think of your motivational theme song and your rock star intro. We're going to be asking you guys for that. We're here to support you. We're here to make you awesome. And you guys are already awesome. You wouldn't be on this call if you weren't. So if anybody's having any reservations or nervousness, don't, because you are already an expert and we can't wait to learn from you. All right. So with that said, we'll wrap it up here and be in touch with everyone soon. All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.